Alright guys, so hope everybody's had a great trading week. I've still currently got my pairs running in AUD, CHF and EJ, and they're going quite nicely. But I've just been doing a little bit of analysis this afternoon, and I've come across a really interesting setup on GU that I'm definitely going to be looking at. I'm not too sure if I'll enter it today, or I will enter it next week. If I do enter it, it'll be the start of the London session. But otherwise, I'll look for an entry next week. So I'll just show you guys sort of what I've been looking at, and then I can sort of break it down how I sort of look at the market a little bit, and you guys can sort of go from there. So I'll clear my chart. So this is the weekly. As I've said many times, I don't really like starting on the monthly because it to me personally, it doesn't really show me a whole lot. It's pretty, there's not a lot of movement. You can get some really good levels on the monthly, but aside from that, I prefer to start on the weekly. But obviously, straight away we can see here that where price is rejected from on the monthly here was also a big level here. So if that is a rejection candle, which it certainly looks like it is, we should consider movement back to the upside. But I start on the weekly because there's a little bit more candles to sort of work with. And the first thing that I can see is an inverse head and shoulders pattern forming like such. Okay, so this right shoulder now is essentially pretty much the same lows as this left one. So that's the first thing that I sort of look at. Now the second thing that's pretty interesting is if you draw the trend line. Now I understand some people draw trends a little bit differently, but in this instance you can have it so it sort of works really well. So if you go onto the daily and go from the lows to this one, which is how you would draw that. Now it looks like it's breaking out on the daily. Okay, if you head to the weekly time frame, you can see that trend line is in fact valid and it is holding exactly. So you have obviously the first, you have this where it held. Yes, it wicked below, but it closed above. So that is a valid trend line. You could almost consider here a touch. I would. So that's 1, 2, 3, and you're looking at it now. It hasn't rejected yet, but keep in mind that this is the weekly and this is the daily. So if this closes back above, we can consider this as a false break, just to sort of warrant people to sort of short the movement. But back to the weekly, we have a trend line there that we can look at. We have the inverted head and shoulders, and then if I draw a fib from low to high, now we can see here that it's right on the 50 at the moment, but the 61.8 is also there. Now, this is where I'm in a little bit of two minds, because we can see here that market structure on both of them is quite strong. If we did market structure on the 61.8, which is here, and we did market structure on the 50, which is about there-ish. I'll change that to pink. And I'll remove this fib. You can see that there's a lot of market structure for both areas. Obviously, the fib, the 61.8, you have the inverse head and shoulders. As I've mentioned in a couple of posts, I like to see the inverse head and shoulder, like the right shoulder being a little bit higher or lower than the previous one. So that still works, but it's just something to take note of. But also on the 50, you have market structure here. You have resistance here. This was support on the 61.8. You have support on the 50. So both of these are really sort of key areas. The only reason why I'm looking at the 50 is purely because it lines up with the trend, and there is still quite a bit of market structure there. So if we put that back and looked at the 50, I'll just mark that level with a line, and then I'll move on to a lower time frame. So what's that? 27,951. So 27,951, and I'll just mark it as weekly 50%. Okay. So take that away. Now you go down to the daily. Now, one thing I always like to do is the previous leg of the last movement that happened, I always like to do it, say that'll be from there to there, and see where the negative 27 is, because it is a target area. Now, as you can see here, it's essentially right where market is at the moment. I think that from memory it was 990, so 127,990. So 1.27990, and then we just write here daily negative 27 previous leg. So right now I've currently got three confluences that I can be looking at to sort of go long from this. Now obviously that trend line doesn't really look that good now, because obviously it's on a lower time frame, there's a bit more noise. But if we get rid of that, there also is a trend somewhere around here. Right there, that we can be looking at as a reversal off this. Ideally, this isn't a perfect trend because I've cut the colors a tiny little bit on the candles, but ultimately it's still respected. So that's another confluence there. So essentially right here in this area here is where we could be looking to take a long position. Now, bear in mind that the London session is probably going to, this is just a prediction by the way, but due to this trend line breaking out on the daily, and this trend line here, I'm expecting it to push a lot lower. And the reason for that is obviously to stop hunt. There's going to be a lot of people, that are going to go long from here, and there's going to be a lot of people that want to go short once they see some kind of movement. So I think during the London session, if there's a lot of manipulation, I think it's going to drop a little bit more, and then we're going to see a spike to the upside, because that way the people that go long are going to get stopped out. The people are going to get in for a short, and then if it reverses, they're going to get stopped out as well. And obviously there's more liquidity for the big guys. So I'm expecting to see that. I'm not an indicator-based trader, but I'll have a look on the weekly and see what's happening. So on the weekly, it's squeezed. It was obviously extremely bearish momentum here. We can see here that it's squeezing, okay? It's really, really tight. I do expect this to obviously close underneath these EMAs, but I think next week we're going to start to see a push to the upside. The only thing that I guess is I'm a little bit concerned about is all the Brexit news. I didn't mean to do that. Is all the Brexit news. But obviously, trade what you see, not what you think is something that I try to live by as much as I can. So head to the 4 hour. And, we can see here, there's the only thing is as well, there's still a lot of lower highs and lower lows being created. So we have to be wary of that. Now on this 4 hour, you can see that where price is right now is an extremely, sort of popular area. And it's also near the 128 sort of handle. Okay, so all around this area here, where's 128? 128 is right here. So right now it's essentially, stuffing around this area a fair bit. And there's certainly a lot of confluences that we can go long. So, looking at this, I can also see if I do this, so high to low. Yep, there's another one. So we can also see that's in negative 27 of this leg. So we have high, we have down, we have a retouchment of the 71.8 or the 61.8, closed below both of them. Continuation, that's negative 27, and we can expect to see some kind of movement to the upside from here. So we have high, swing low, rejection, back down to negative 27. We can expect to see some kind of push up, and then that can obviously be a downtrend as well with 3 touches should we see that. So I'm going to mark that. I'm going to mark that as well. And then from there, I might try and look for some entries on the lower time frames. I can't even read that. 129. 179. 17932. 7932, and that is negative 27 for hour. Right, so we can already see here, guys, that there's so many confluences to go long here. As I said, I am expecting a push down. During London, I am expecting a push down to get people out of the trade before we see a movement up. I just want to go into the 1 hour. Yeah, okay. So we can see here as well that we've gone up, but we're sort of creating a little bit of a bull flag. Now, generally, if we're looking at, like, obviously a bear flag, it sort of goes, you know, the opposite way. So I guess this could even be considered a little bit of a triangle. The way that I'm looking at the market, though, I'm considering it to be a bull flag. So I'm going to draw a trend, something like that. And we can see here that we're almost rejecting off that. I'm just going to draw a box from this one to this one. In here, and I'm going to get rid of that and then make this line's a little bit bigger, and I'm going to delete that one, that one, that one, just to make the charts a little bit cleaner. Actually, I'm going to change that. And then what I'm going to do is, it sort of looks like it's already broken that, so I'm going to go fib low to high 61.8 right there. That's where I'm going to look to take an entry. I've just decided, I don't normally trade Fridays, but I really like the look of this. 1.27883 right there. And that's where I'm going to look to take my, take my entry at that pink line there. So I can remove this box. Now, targets, there's a few. Obviously, your first one, depending on, as I said, Fridays I generally don't like to trade. I hate holding trades over the weekend. I really, really do. But it could be a good opportunity for next week if you don't get in. And, it might not even go the way that I want it to, but we'll soon find out. So that's your first target. Here's negative 27. If you go into the higher time frames, you can use this again. So swing high, swing low. Negative 27. You can sort of draw a trend line. I'm going to draw a trend line from here down, and you can sort of see, that negative 38, negative 23, they sort of line up with the trend if it was to make a rejection again. So this can be your second one, say negative, I say 23. And then, your next one can be sort of, anywhere, depending on how long you like to hold trades for. As I said, though, on the weekly time frame, the monthly time frame, that is a big rejection candle off this previous area here. So I wouldn't be surprised if this was just a wick down before we see continuation up. So I hope you guys got something out of that. Please feel free to leave any feedback on the comments, and if you did get anything out of this, please like and subscribe to stay up to date with my my next stuff that I post. So I hope you had a great week, and I'll see you next week.